right. Hi, everybody. We are in week 2, and in this week, you are converting your annotated bibliographies into the literature review outlines. So we're going to talk about that tonight, but we're also going to focus on references and how to do this. So let's jump right in. So source inclusion, which are your sources, and we're going to look at how to do in-text citation and how to do reference list citation as well. Okay. So here we are talking about, in general this week, our main assignment obviously is moving from the prepared annotated bibliography to developing the literature review. So this is our literature review process, and this is how I visualize it anyway. So you can see we started at the top, although everything is kind of circular, where you identified a problem or question in this course. For the first literature review that you're building, it is given to you and you were able to select one. Then in week 1, you searched the literature, and we had Lisa Spicola come and help us with this last week. And with that, you then prepared the annotated bibliography. So now we're going to move to developing the literature review. Before we can develop a literature review, we also need to talk about citations. This is not so important for week 3. It is extremely important for week 4. So I'm doing it now because it could be important for week 3 depending on how you structure your outline. The citations in general were also important in the annotated bibliography, but they're going to become more important as we go. So let's talk about this. So for APA, the type of citations that you're doing, even paraphrase content obviously needs to have citations, right? So in the narration, when you are citing something, you have your author and the year of publication is in parentheses. So if there are 3+ authors, remember that immediately you're using et al. This is a big difference from the 6th edition where you had to list all 9 authors the first time and then you could move to et al. No more. It's just et al. From the very beginning. So I do feel like the 7th edition is much more user-friendly, and this is one of those places where it's like, yay, big win. We can put et al. From the very beginning, but just keep that in mind. In parenthetical citations, remember that you are, your author, year of publication, page number if we are talking about direct quotes. But I have something on that, I think, in just a minute here. So, yeah, right there. There's my direct quote information. But you want to be sure that you're including all of the relevant components. This narrative one, it's a little tricky. I have it on another slide where I give you the rule. Remember, I don't make the rules. I'm just the messenger. We have to follow them. Some of the APA rules are very quirky. That's just all there is to it. So keeping in mind in-text citation, this is something that you really didn't have to do for the annotated bibliography and likely may or may not do, I should say, for the outline, but definitely will do when you move into the first draft, right? Because you have to have in-text citation. For the direct quotes, just remember if it's 39 words or less, you're doing it right in the content and you're providing the page number is really the only additional piece of information or location marker if it's a website. If it is 40+ words, then you're moving to block format. All of this is laid out fairly easily to understand in the APA manual. And I have the page numbers there for you. All right, so this is that one where I was telling you I have the rules, a little quirky. So for narrative citations, within the same paragraph, you include the year, the first time you put the author or the source, but the author's names. Any subsequent mention or reference to that same source within the same paragraph, no year, just the names, or et al. If it's 3 or more. As soon as you hit a new paragraph, that rule resets. That one is hard for people to remember because I don't know, just quirky. So this is one of those things that I don't expect you to commit to memory, but I do expect you to check for after. So this can be done, many of these checks can be done visually very easily. Write it, then go through and say, okay, do I have, like if you see 2023, like 3 times in a paragraph, look and see, ooh, is that the same source? Oop, I got to take out the 2023 for narrative. Parenthetical citations always get the year. I don't know why they're different, but they are. All right. Parenthetical sources with more than one source always should be listed in alphabetical order, not in chronological order. So you never change the order of the authors for one source. So for instance, if it's Smith and Jones, you never change it to Jones and Smith. There's reasons why Smith is the first author. You always keep the authors in the order they are presented to you, but the different sources have to go in alphabetical order. Narrative citations are usually better in chronological order because you're showing the progression. There's no definite rule there, so that there's some leeway there, but typically it makes sense to do narrative and chronological, but parenthetical citations always in alphabetical order. All right, et al is plural, so treat it that way. Make sure you have word alignment that goes with plural et al. All right, narrative citations use AND because they are in the narrative, the content. Parenthetical citations use ampersand. This PowerPoint's obviously going to be available for you along with the recording. So I know there's lots of little rules, but you'll be able to go back and look at this in one place later. All right, so secondary work citations. I put an example of this in today's announcement, but here's another example here. So you always want to try to get the primary source. When you go to your dissertation work, you will be pushed to always find the primary source. Sometimes it's impossible. You just can't get your hands on it. Okay, then you need to do a secondary citation. For coursework, at least for my coursework, I'll say, I don't require you to go find the primary source. We don't have enough time. So it's okay if you have a secondary source. It shouldn't be every source, but if you happen to run into this, this is what it would look like. So the example is the articles by Jones, 2017, and they state 23% of dogs have brown spots, but they cite Smith. Well, you can't find Smith, so what do you do? All right, well, in the in-text citation, you're going to do something like this, where you say, according to Smith, 2015, and then you put the information, but then you put as cited in Jones. In your reference section, the end of the work where you have your reference list, you are only going to cite the one that you had your hands on or your eyes on, the digital copy. So you're only citing Jones in the reference list, not Smith. Remember, we work with references. We don't work with bibliographies. A bibliography would say, go ahead and put Smith in, or anything you reviewed goes in a bibliography. Reference list, only what you physically, digitally, whatever, interacted with and used in your work. Okay.
Sorry, a quick question on that.
Yes,
So
please.
just so I make sure I understand. So in your example above, the Jones 2017 and Smith 2015, if we can find the primary source, do we put that in our reference page, or we don't ever use that in our reference page?
So if you find the primary source, then you're going to change this and you don't have to put as cited by Jones. You would just put Smith 2015 says 23% of dogs have spots. You get rid of Jones completely if you're going to find and use the primary.
Okay. So if we can't find the primary, we're only citing then in the references just the secondary source?
Yes.
So the reference will never include both. Is that true?
Right, the reference list. Yep, in text we'll have both. Reference list will just have the one you're looking at.
Okay.
Which is confusing because it's your primary source that you're looking at, but it's the secondary to the Smith, or yeah, to Smith.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that right. Thank you.
Yep,
Yes.
sure. Thanks for asking.
Professor,
Yes.
let's say if there's a footnote starting like with a number 1, number 2, number 3 through
Yep.
the study, do
We
we?
don't do footnotes.
Okay, I mean, because when I reading a study or a journal,
Yep.
then most of the time it has a footnote, 1, 2, 3, etc. And then do I need to go to the reference of the paper to bring?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if you're reading something that has it footnoted, you treat it the same way. If it was cited from somewhere else, you would do the same first, second citation method. Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. And we typically don't do footnoting in our writing for courses. I don't know that you'll have any courses that do, because we don't do it in the dissertations. In dissertations, you'll have notes that go on figures and tables, but we don't do footnoting in the main content. All right, let's go here. So transitional expressions. So there are times when you're trying to make everything flow. And you're going to find this maybe in the outline, but probably not, mostly in the draft, when you've got all these points from all these different places. And how do you make them nice and cohesive and synthesize this? So here is an example of basic phrases that you can use to kind of move from one work to the next. You're connecting all these different sources, all these different statements from these different sources. I didn't complete the statements in every case, but I gave you some language that can help you to try to bring all this together and make it read like one work as opposed to point, 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 point. It's got a little bit more flow to it when you use these expressions. All right. Connective language. So we just looked at transitional expressions. We're going to look at connective language, and we're going to look at one more in a minute. So connective language, multiple sentences trying to bring them together from the same authors. So we just looked at how to move between studies. Now, this is what we might want to do if we are connecting the same authors or studies. The reason we have this connective language is so that we don't have to say Bassanivolio said, Bassanivolio said, Bassanivolio said, or have parenthetical citations at the end of every sentence that say Bassanivolio, Bassanivolio, right? So when you move to dissertation work, and I know you're only in your third course and you're like, oh gosh, that's so far off, but all the coursework is to help prepare you for that point. And in this course, I really want to help you develop some of these skills for the literature review or for writing in general, because obviously that's a huge part of this program. So almost every line of your dissertation, every other line or so, is going to be cited in your literature review. So let me rephrase that, in chapter 2, right? Because chapter 2 or literature reviews are about you telling us what other people have published and said about this topic, not your thoughts and what you think about it, what other people have said about it. So it has to be clear that you're not just writing, that you are paraphrasing from somewhere, right? So in this sentence, Bass and Avolio are cited here. And then I'll just read this a little bit. Bass and Avolio's 1994 full-range leadership model provides a theoretical framework for leadership and describes various leadership styles and their effectiveness in motivating employees. Included within the model. So now we know we're still talking about that same model. We didn't switch gears. Included in the model, blah, 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 blah. We talk about the 4 components. I'm sorry. And then here it says the 4 components. Then the next sentence says the 4 components include. So now we're telling you what the 4 components are. The model suggests that leaders should. So there's no confusion along the way. If I read that, I wouldn't say, ooh, Gail, are these your thoughts or did this come from somewhere? It's clear to me that this came from those authors. Great. It's always a good idea to kind of cap off those paragraphs with a parenthetical citation. So this is a good form. You won't have a ton of these because typically somewhere, like you might have this, but then you're going to have other works infused in it, but once in a while you'll have something that's a little bit more lengthy or more sentences that go to the same work. And this is a good option to let the reader know that you didn't make this stuff up. These aren't your thoughts. It's all connected to the same source. This next one, so let me just go back to recap a little bit. So we had our transitional expressions and then our connective language. Sorry, I'm moving back. Yeah, so transitional language and connective language. I just use the term expressions here. All right, moving back.
Yes. Can you go back a little bit? Yes.
Yep. Where to this?
Yes, next one. The next slide.
There.
Yes.
Yep.
You can see at the beginning of the paragraph, you put Bass and Avolios, apostrophe S, and then at the end, you put parentheses, Bass and Avolio. Is there a better form to do that, or are they the same?
Nope. So if you read the sentence, so the work, the authors are Bass and Avolio, right? 1994. But this is Bass and Avolio's full range leadership model. So it's ownership because it's their model. But down here, I'm not citing anything with ownership in the sentence. I'm just putting them as the source after the statement.
Yes. So what if I put Bass and Avolio, comma, parentheses, 1994?
No.
Remove the first. Okay.
So if you wanted to say Bass and Avolio, I'm trying to think of why you would need a comma. So like let's say it says Bass and Avolio, parentheses, 1994, found that blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't need the apostrophe S. If you have a reason where there would be a comma, it would be Bass and Avolio, parentheses, 1994, comma, whatever.
So the first one indicates that the sentence belongs to Bass and Avolio, the apostrophe S.
Well, it's not the sentence. It's the full range leadership
That
model.
paragraph.
Yeah, but it's not, it has nothing to do with the structure of the statements or the paragraph. We have ownership on the apostrophe S isn't a formal part of the citation, where I'm putting that there because I'm saying Bass and Avolio's model. So it's just showing ownership.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so now reference list citations. All right, so this is where a lot of people get tripped up, and I saw this in the annotated bibliographies. Some people did a wonderful job on their citations, and there were no in-text citations, which were fine. So these were just reference list citations. Some people had some mistakes. I will tell you, this is an area that is difficult because it just feels overwhelming. So let's break it down and see what we're looking at. The reference list citation has author, date, title, source, and a DOI or URL. So it's 5 components. However, the source piece of this has its own multiple components within it. So the source has the source title, the volume, issue, and the page range. And then the DOI URL is kind of the last piece of it. But up top, I have it as its own separate item. So in this little example, I've italicized what should be italicized. The source title gets italicized, the volume number gets italicized. There is no space between volume and issue, but the issue and its parentheses do not get italicized. Again, I don't make the rules, we just have to follow them. So let's take a look at this a little bit more. I have a DOI and URL APA org page there for you. This would be an example of a proper citation. And I cringe every time I say that because I feel like every time I paste something into PowerPoint, it messes up my formatting. And then I see it when I'm presenting. I'm like, this is the way to do it, except for this. But I think this one is good. So this is what a citation would look like. Now, remember, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 authors. So in text, that would say Grady et al.
Et al.
Yep, in text, but in the reference list citation, we have to have it all. So they're all listed here. You can use the ampersand. You should use the ampersand in the reference citations. Here's a link to journal article references.
So
We're going to practice. Oh,
a
go
quick
ahead. Sorry.
question for you. So
Yes.
when the item emotions in storybooks, a comparison, blah, 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 is all capitalized in the article itself, I noticed that it doesn't capitalize a lot of the words in here. Is there a right or wrong for that?
Yes.
Or
Yep. So article titles will almost always be in all caps, or the first letter of every word will be in all caps in the article.
okay.
APA citation says, no, we don't want to do that. We are just going to capitalize the first letter, and then any first letter after punctuation. So because there's a colon here, the A gets capitalized. That's it.
Okay.
Now we have a proper noun in the title, so obviously that also gets capitalized, but everything else, no caps.
Okay, so I definitely messed that up, but I wasn't sure why. I couldn't find anything that said, "Oh, do this because of this," and I just didn't understand why. So thank you for that.
So this is one of those moments, like, when you're a parent and you're like, because I said so. Because the APA manual says so. Why it says so, I couldn't tell you. I am not an English grammar APA expert, but this is why we do it, because APA says to do it.
Yep. Okay. I just couldn't find anything that said I couldn't find anything that said I had to, or I couldn't find anything that formatted it this way. Let me say it that way. Maybe I wasn't looking in the right place, but that's where I was.
This is the APA style guide. Obviously, it's also in the APA manual, but
Yep.
it has it in here. Now, here's the fun part of this. If you don't know what you're looking for, you could look at this and say, oh yeah, I've got it all right. But not realizing, oh, I have every letter capitalized at the beginning. Like if you don't know what you're supposed to be looking for, it's much harder.
Okay. Well, now I know, so
Yep.
I'm good.
And you know what? When you said that, I might not have caught that on yours. I was so focused on volume numbers being italicized that I probably didn't even realize that it was all caps in the title. Or in some cases, I might have just said, check these because you've multiple issues. But I don't even remember seeing that, Gail. So that might have gone right by me.
Oh, good.
Yeah. All right. So what's our time? Okay. So this is a practice for you guys. So we're going to talk through this. If you want to bring up a Word page or an email or on a scrap of paper, whatever, to see if we can kind of do this together and where you might be with this. So here are the main elements again, the 5: author, date, title, source, and DOI. The source elements include these items here. So let's see. If we were to click on this, it would take us to the front page of an article, but I have the information here, all the information we need to create a citation. So based on these rules up here, see if you can just quickly, you don't have to type out all the words, but see if you can develop a proper citation for yourself. And don't tell me and don't ask me, I'm going to cover it in a minute, but I just see if you can do it with the information that's provided. If you're watching this recording after the fact, pause or take the time and see if you can develop your own citation for this. All right, so I'm going to walk through it and see if you have your parts correct. All right, so the first piece that we need are the authors. So the authors are here. And this particular journal, some of the words are not in English, which can happen when you're looking at your sources. also adds an extra layer of fun to this process. So here are the authors. I have had some students ask me, some names, sometimes in certain cultures, first names are listed first or last, or how do I know? To be honest with you, you're not expected to be an expert in how names are written in every language or culture. Go with how it's listed on the article. Assume it's first name first, second name, surname last. So these would be your authors. So you're putting your authors in, and I'm going to show you the correct citation as after we walk through these pieces. So this here is the year. So we have the date. This does not say November 2nd, 2023. This is number 2, but it's 2023 is our date. Most articles are only going to have a year. Some will give you the month and day, but you're really looking for the year in terms of the citation.
Do we put in the month and day? Because it does say published in December, on December 18th, 2023, or do we not include it if we've got it?
Not if it's okay, right? So you have that here. Good question. Not if it's a journal article. There
Okay.
are some citations where you would include that, maybe like a newsletter or something like that. But again, that's not a scholarly source. But for articles, no, just the years. Good question, Gail. All right, so we have the year. So now we have the authors, we have the date. Next up is our title. And this goes with what Gail just asked. Every first letter is capitalized. Well, not every, but most. So think about how you would write that in your reference.
So only differences would be capitalized and then the A in front of literature review. The rest would
Yep.
all be
Yep.
not.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So here's the source. That one might have been a little difficult to find, but honestly, by process of elimination of what you're looking at, usually you can kind of figure that out. And then we have, now we're into our source elements. So we have a volume number. We have an issue number. If you're ever in doubt, you do the best you can. You're going to assume number 2, that's your issue, right? So they may not always say issue or volume. And then we have a page range there. And they nicely give us the DOI right there. So I'm going to flip here. This is what your correct citation should look like. How'd you guys do?
And when I look at this after the bulletin, whatever that word is, that 31 and the 2, I know this now, but that does not look italicized to
Italicized.
my eye.
Yeah, I know. And that is a difficult one to see and notice. And it talk to me in 2 years, Gail, you're going to be like, oh, I see that. It's italicized. I will share
Well,
with you that.
I see it now because I know
Yeah.
I'm supposed to see it.
Right. Yep. My first doctoral class, my professor gave us a bunch of dissertations to look at and see, kind of comment on them. And a woman in the class raised her hand and she said, this is not, and I'll be honest with you, I can't remember if the indentation at the time was 5 or 6, but whatever it was supposed to be, she's like, this is not a 5-space indentation. I was like, oh my gosh, I am in so much trouble. I do not belong here. And now I can pick up spacing and indentations. So it's interesting what your eyes are going to see as you go through this process that you never would have noticed before.
Well, I know in the first class, I mean, for 50 plus years, I've always done a period and 2 spaces because, that's the way I've been taught
Yes.
how to type.
Yep.
And now to
Mhm.
go to 1 space, I actually literally do a control find to make sure that my habitual writing hasn't
Yes.
kicked in.
Yep, that's and that is a great thing to do. The find feature in Word is going to be your friend for all kinds of things like this. Now we are only looking at journal article citations. There are all kinds of other fun citations. And then there's also what to do if it's missing this piece of information or this piece of information. So the website that I gave you on the slide will help you with that. The APA design guide, but also the APA manual gives you that information as well. On the inside cover of the APA manual, they actually have a nice little chart that is handy. It's further in the book too, in the right section, but it's on the inside cover of the 7th edition, where it tells you like the components that you need for in-text. I can't remember if it does reference list, but it gives you some helpful information there. All right, so here are some more sources for reference list citations. So journal article references, which is what I had on the previous slide. If you have a dissertation that you're referencing, conference presentation, et cetera, these are some of the popular ones. I will tell you, your focus for our course should be journal article references, right? That's what you should be looking at. You may have something like an article from Forbes as, you know, a good supplemental source, or you may have like, you want to look at BLS numbers because that's pertinent to what you're talking about. Okay, that's fine. But the majority of your references in this program are going to be journal articles. In some classes, you are asked to look at dissertations, and that's great. While dissertations are published, they are not considered a peer-reviewed scholarly publication until the authors take that dissertation and turn it into an article and submit. But dissertations are good, and they serve a great purpose to review for your own work, like finding instruments or looking at how they're set up, and they are great resources. But when we talk about scholarly sources, we are talking mainly about journal article sources. Okay, so now the part we've all been waiting for, literature review outline. So what are we talking about? So I put this little step-by-step process together for you, just to kind of help you find a place to start, right? So you're going to review all your annotations and look for themes. It is very important, and I thought I put a slide in here, maybe it's coming up next. We are not putting together a series of article reviews. So your work should not look like your annotated bibliography. It should not look like this source said this, and this source said this, and this source said this. It should be very different. Elena, I'm glad you popped in. Thank you. I'm actually going to just turn on my waiting room, only because I don't know if this is linked just to my name, and I don't want my other class popping in by accident. So let's do that. Okay. So we don't want it to look like a series of article reviews where we have these authors said this, then these authors said this, then these authors said this. We want it to look like the examples that were on the previous slides, where the work is synthesized together. And the way to do that is to organize your content by theme, right? So if you have ever done any qualitative research where you do the coding of all the information, it's kind of what you're doing. You're going to go through your annotated bibliography and code, find some common themes that you can pull out. And I believe I put this in the instructions, but if you find like a one-off, this theme only exists in this article, it's really not a theme, then it's just a point. Maybe you don't make it a section, or you go find another article that can support it, so you have at least 2 sources to support a section. So start with your annotations. You're going to look at them, look for themes. You're going to separate the themes into sections. These themes become the section and subsection headings. So this is how you're organizing your work. This kind of makes your outline. You can do it in outline form, or you have, no Roman numerals, whatever. You don't need to. You can just do it by section headings. If you do it in outline form, be sure to remove the outline numbers, etc., when you convert this into the week 3 work for the draft. So you're going to bring all points relevant to each theme into the appropriate section. So once you've coded and you've got all your points in the articles that go to this theme, you're going to bring them all under that section. It is not the case that each article has to show up in each section. However, at least 2 articles should show up per section, at least 2. Again, if you find a point that's so interesting and you want to include it, but it was only in one of your articles, then it's okay. You can go find another article or more articles. You don't only have to stick to the 6 that you initially worked with. However, do that with caution, because you don't want to spend your time looking for all these new articles. Try to work with what you have, but if you need something to supplement, that's fine too. All right, each section should contain points from at least 2 sources, but as many as are relevant. And then this is what I just said, if you find a point, it doesn't fit anywhere, don't make it a section. So either go find another article or just forego it for now. I was asked by someone in your cohort if I provide examples of work, if I could provide an example. I generally do not provide examples of work. However, I do provide examples of the lit review, and I had forgotten that. So Daniel, when you reached out to me, I apologize. I know you're not on here tonight, but if you watch this recording, so I will have examples of the outlines for you. It doesn't mean they're the best. It's just to show you some options that are out there. But those will show up in the Not So Micro Lecture block when I post this. Oops, what's happening here? When I post this PowerPoint. Okay, so here's this. A literature review is not a series of article reviews, which we already talked about. That slide needs to get moved. So keep in mind, when preparing your work, you do not complete each article summary separately. So this, you can read this on your own after, but this is what I just said. Basically, do not make this a series of article reviews, synthesize your work, make it read cohesively. It should flow from one theme to the next with points from multiple articles infused into one or into each section.
So when you say outline, you're not talking about outline where there's bullet points that are there. You're actually looking for us to make it a cohesive section or summarized section with those key themes.
Okay,
for
great point. So for your for your literature outline, I couldn't think of the word outline, for the outline, you can do it either way. You can literally just take the points from the annotation and dump them in. I would highly recommend, I think I mentioned this in today's announcement, that you go through your points in your annotated bibliography before you start to move them, and stick an in-text citation next to each of them that corresponds to that reference, so that when you start moving the points, you remember where they came from and you don't have to go chase them later. So you can literally just dump the points into the sections. The cohesion is going to come more in week 3 when you're now writing the sections. Some people prefer to just get that done as they're moving the points in. They start making it cohesive, they start writing, and that's okay too. I will take it in either format that works for you. You don't have to do that heavy work this week. Just know if you don't, which is totally fine, it's coming next week. All right, and then this is just a reminder. Literature reviews are a synthesis, a cohesive work. They're smooth, it flows, it's not choppy. Literature reviews are not a series of article reviews. Okay, so that is it for what I wanted to share with you. Is there anything that, before we wrap up, that I didn't cover that you might still have questions on for this week?
Is the literature review, when we do that, is it in where we have the cover page and then we move it along, all official in the APA format, or is it just going to be?
Yeah, so good question. So when you move to week 3 and you're writing a draft, honestly, I mean, cover page, some people put them on every assignment. Whatever, I'm fine. I'm looking at like the content for the assignment. I'll be honest with you, I usually scroll right past the cover page. I had a student email me apologizing they had put the wrong professor's name. They were copying and pasting the cover. I'm like, I don't even look at it. I just go right to the content. So that's the auxiliary stuff, table of contents, all that stuff. I don't need that for this assignment. I'm looking at your lit review content.
Okay.
Some people like to include all that, right? It's not part of your grade. I'm looking at content.
Thanks.
Anything else? Go ahead, JR.
Is there any way we can contact you if we need help separate for the class?
No, don't contact me. Of course, you can contact me anytime.
Through email or through cell phone?
No, so email is actually better because I will see that more quickly and respond to it. So always at least start with email so that if you have a question, I can, help you to figure it out. And if I can't and we need to talk, we can. But yeah, I mean, I'm available if we need to meet again, we can. So whatever you need, whatever works for you, just let me know.
I mean, for me specifically, due to my work, I schedule myself to work at night and specifically on weekends, starting Friday night.
Mhm.
And most of the times, and when I go to the library, sometimes I couldn't obtain exactly the article that I need, and sometimes I think I need a feedback from somebody like you. That's why I'm asking that whether I can
Yep.
quickly send you
So,
an email.
so nothing that we're doing in this course requires anything so specific that if you can't get it, you can't sub it out for something else. That said, something I would start doing if you have not already, if you find an article that you're using for an assignment and then later for dissertation work, copy it, download it, save it. If there's no way for you to like download it, whatever, literally copy it into Word and save the document with the URL, with the citation, because so often these things disappear. And it could be during, you work on it on a Wednesday, you get back to it on a Friday, it disappeared on Thursday. So if you're working on something that is like going to be a pain in the neck to have to go find something else, save all your articles in some format. But there's nothing in this course, JR, that you would have to be like, oh gosh, I can't find that you couldn't just shift gears. Yeah,
Okay.
Zotero is a great app for saving your articles. And again, once in a blue moon, you might find one where you can't like get it out of the computer. Literally copy the content into Word and save the file.
Yes, this question has two heads. The first one, can I change? Let's say last week assignment, I selected 6 articles. Through the process of this term, is it possible I can change one article? That's number one. Number two.
Yeah, so my rule typically is you always want to you want to change as little as possible. With that said, sometimes you're like, yeah, now that I'm trying to find my themes, this one like doesn't have anything to do with anything. Okay, fine, kick it out, get another one. So change as little as possible, but know you have the flexibility to change what you need. I would not expect to open your outline and see 6 new articles. If there's one new one, it like replaced. If you have 8 and 2 are new, it's fine. But of the 6 originals, I wouldn't expect 6 new ones. 1, maybe 2 if you have to. But if you have 6 new ones, that tells me you weren't doing what you needed to do in the previous week. So
Okay.
I would, you have flexibility, but change as little as possible.
Okay, keep the 6 originals, and then I can add 1 or 2 if I think it is necessary, or if
Yes.
I like one of them.
Yeah,
Oh,
and you can feel free to kick one out if you need to, but just again, keep it as similar as possible.
okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. Right. Anything else? Okay, so we went a little longer than normal, but I'm actually glad because when I realized all the content I needed to cover, I'm like, we're going to need more time. So I will post this video. I'm going to stop the recording, but anyone who's watching it, please also feel free to reach out.